Well, good evening to the audience I hope to have tonight. This is my first actual official broadcast of Radio Free Ontario. I apologize for any of you who stumbled on my earlier efforts just to merely to create the ability to do a podcast. But especially the hour-long session that ended up to be a gab session with my youngest son. I apologize for that. I should have cut off the air and continued talking. Anyway, tonight we have a topic, ladies and gentlemen. We have a topic and we have a general version of a script, really. So I entitle this The Great Pandemic of 2020. Well, I'm a little nervous. Give me a second here, will you please? Never done this kind of stuff before. But just give me a second to kind of soothe my nerves a little. Number one, by 3, I should have a good boost of downer or whatever you call it. Okay, I'm ready to rock and roll here, people. The first statement I'm going to make is this. Pandemics aren't what they used to be. I have a sneaking suspicion, since I went to the dictionary and a thesaurus to check out, just exactly what is a pandemic. I have a sneaking suspicion that the actual dictionary definition of a pandemic has been altered over the years. I may be wrong, but if any of you know someone who's got a dictionary or a thesaurus that dates prior to 1980, I would really like to hear the definition of a pandemic that's in that dictionary. The one I have dates to 1986. Yeah, surprised I was around then. Anyway, it dates to 1986. And the definition there doesn't match up my concept of what a pandemic is. Quite frankly, this is from the good old WHO, such a wonderful agency we have, describes it. It's a global, or at least very widespread, of a disease that causes an illness. And the person who gave that definition was a doctor, I probably pronounce it wrong, Keiji, Keigi Fukada, who is an assistant director general ad interim for health, security, and environment at the WHO. I don't know if he's still there. I got this quote from a outside source, but damn, that doesn't match my definition of what a pandemic is. In fact, it's very lacking in my mind on describing a pandemic. I had come out of my education system, 18 years of it, and into the world, widely read, with the idea that a pandemic is something, a disease, that spreads over a large area, that kills huge numbers of people beyond your normal death cycles. Example, the Black Plague, one of the most famous of all, that was in the 1300s, is estimated to have killed 75 to 200 million people in its little spree in Europe and North Africa, but all over the world, in fact. Now, that was at a time when the world population was estimated at 475 million. So close to half the people on the earth perished under the pandemic of the Black Plague. And that, people, is the number who were killed. That's not the number who were infected and recovered. Yeah, so that's pretty impressive. Another one's the Spanish flu of 1918 and 1919. Again, it was estimated to have killed 68 million people worldwide when the world's population was 1,762,000,000 people. Okay, now those, I will agree, those were pandemics. However, there's a second weakness in the WHO definition here. Not only must it kill a large number, in my mind, not only does it have to kill a large number of people, it has to kill a large number of people across the board. I'm talking it should cover every demographic group from infants to seniors. And, irrespective of which group I think the bubonic plague did just that. I believe the Spanish flu did just that. It wasn't just one select group of people who it affected. I'll ask a question. On the premises that A, kill a large number of people outside the normal death cycles, and B, be widely distributed across the different age groups, do we actually have a pandemic? Is the normal pattern of the death cycle dramatically altered? Is there a massive increase in the number of deaths around the world? And you have to bear in mind, we're talking here percentages. Because frankly, the last estimate I heard of the modern population of the world, and it's probably low, is 7.5 billion people, as opposed to my earlier number I misinterpreted. It was 1 million, 4 million, what comes after million? Billion, yeah. 1,762,000 in 1918, 19. Now it's 7.5 billion people. Okay, so does it kill beyond the normal, regular cyclical death cycle? You have to look at that as a basis of deciding, do we really have a pandemic or not? First and foremost, you have to look beyond the hype and propaganda, and it is propaganda, that's being disseminated widely by politicians, people associated with medical profession. Some of them aren't even from the medical profession, but they're associated with it. And especially mainstream media. Now, these are actual statistics, people. This isn't just spouting off the top of my head. These are true given statistics. In the period from July 1st of 2019 to June 30th of 2020, Canada recorded a total of 30,031 total deaths across the board. So that's in a one-year period that ended in June 30th of 2020. That was actually an increase of 1,285 people over the same period from July 1st of 2018 and July 30th of 2019. But bear in mind, our population went up in that time period by roughly 340,000 people. So in that time period, July of 19 to June 30th of 2020, 0.08% of the Canadian population died. And just to give a little more depth to this, I'm going to go to the same time period. And that was in a national population estimated to be 37,740,000 people. Again, that's rounded off. In the same period, In July 1st of 2014 to June 30th of 2015, we reported 26,616 total deaths. The estimated population then was 36,030,000. During that particular year, 1 year period we'll call it, 0.07%, not even 1%, 0.07% of the Canadian population passed away. Deaths by all causes. And that period, actually, the deaths that year were 1,311 deaths higher than the year before. So, frankly, the key, most important statistic in deciding whether you got a pandemic on your hand are extreme mortality rates. We clearly don't have them in that time period. In fact, I went back several years looking at what percentage of the Canadian population usually dies in a year. In recent years, using 20 as being complete, we got 0.08%. Actually, on the calendar year for 19, we had 0.08%. Then 17, 16, and 15, 14 were all at the 0.07%. So we're 0.01% of the more of the Canadian population have died in 18, 19, and 20 than in the 3 years previously. Now, okay. And now, do we have widespread infestations or deaths? Forget infestations. Deaths across the demographic board? No, we don't. One particular group of people are very prone to passing away in any given year, whether you have a pandemic or not. And you all know quite clearly that's the senior population. They are the most vulnerable. They're the ones who end up in long-term care homes, and they are the ones who are, already have heart problems, lung problems, numerous other problems that are, in the end, causes of death in themselves, not to mention aging and the aging factor. We don't have an overall increase in the total number of deaths. We do have a slight increase in terms of numbers more than anything, not percentages, in the senior citizen population in this country. See, what no one's mentioning to you when they're talking about deaths, and I'll go back to the senior death rates in a minute, but actually the number of seniors in Canada has been growing steadily. Based on the 2011 census, we had 4.9 million, again, these are all rounded off figures, senior citizens in Canada. 5 years later, in 2016, we had 5.9 million senior citizens in Canada. And the estimate, because we didn't have a census, of course, for 2020 is we have 6.8 million seniors in Canada. So in that, we'll call it a 10-year period, we basically have close to 2 million more senior citizens. If there are 2 million more senior citizens, you're going to have a total number of senior citizens passing away that's higher than in those previous periods. Duh, it's common sense, my friends. It's common sense. Who's being hit hard by, the blame is put on COVID. COVID's been a wonder drug, really an absolute wonder drug. It's eliminated influenza. It's eliminated pneumonia. It's eliminated bronchitis. It's eliminated sepsis. Deaths in all those categories seems to have disappeared almost. the obvious conclusion to draw is pneumonia, the flu, sepsis, etc., are being misdiagnosed as COVID or being listed, and they don't tell you much about this. I've got a couple of figures, if I can find my sheets based on this, of comorbidity factors that affect deaths, yet they blame it on COVID. With that respect, I'm going to go outside of Canada for a moment because we're talking about a so-called world pandemic. In November of 2020, a high official in the Johns Hopkins medical world, and we all know what Johns Hopkins is and how highly respected it is, put out, Johns Hopkins is always putting out newsletters, and the author who presented this was basically, she says that the total number of deaths from all causes in the United States didn't show a dramatic spike. COVID numbers were way up, first year they were ever recorded, but things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and pneumonia, flu, whatever, it went way, way down. I'm going to tell you something about this newsletter. Say it was published, I believe it was, I'm going to say November of 2020. Within a week, that newsletter was, in essence, retracted. Another official at Johns Hopkins, or a group at Johns Hopkins, had basically pulled it from publication. You can still get it. It's pretty darn difficult to do because I've been trying to get the actual newsletter, and they say that, it had some shortcomings in it. Whether it had shortcomings or not, the opinion should be heard. Another thing, there's a website I went on called townhall.com. And in August of 2020, the CDC revealed that of 161,392 deaths attributed to COVID in the U.S., only 9,700 were due to COVID alone. So 6% of them. 94% of them had an average of 2.6 additional conditions. Could very well have been listed as the cause of death. There's heart disease. There's diabetes. There's something called sepsis. I had to look that sucker up. I think I've heard of it before. Okay, that's in the United States. There's a group called research.ca, researchcanada.ca. Let me find my notes on them. I got it here somewhere. I've had about 3 or 4 rewrites of this, and I'm not sticking strictly to my. Okay, no, damn. Pretty sure it's called researchcanada.ca. That I've referred to for several articles on COVID and that sort of thing. But in the one of many articles there dealing with COVID, they stated that, Europe is not showing a drastic increase in the number of deaths overall. The death rates are pretty darn close to the normal parameters. So if total number of deaths hasn't increased, how do we have a pandemic? Pandemics are supposed to kill huge numbers of people. So that being said, so I want to keep this kind of short and sweet and to the point. Unfortunately, I don't show any viewers. Hopefully, I will get some viewers on this after the fact. And who knows, I may be having problems with my production. I'm not a computer geek. As far as I know, this is real and going out to you. I will, in fact, go on. I'm going to save it to my own YouTube or my own Facebook channel to see if it's coming through clearly. I do have the benefit of live chat, but supposedly I've only got one viewer. I advertise this a little. I send out to everybody in Messenger on my friends list that I was going to be on tonight from 6:30 to 7 or so, or start 6:30 to 7. So I'm really surprised I don't have a single viewer. Well, I have one viewer. I don't know who it is. You could possibly live chat me. Just say, hi, I'm with you. And, of course, you'll be able to go back on YouTube and do this after the fact, I believe. So my conclusions are quite simple. We do not have a pandemic. Not at all. It doesn't meet my definition of a pandemic. And now, if we don't have a pandemic, the first question is, why is every level of government in Canada hyping it? Why is mainstream media doing its ultimate best to scare the daylights out of you with, we've got so many cases of this, new cases of it today, we've got so many new cases tomorrow. One thing they neglect to tell you when they say Health Canada reports 7,500 new cases of COVID. Now, you assume that's 7,500 cases of new COVID that day. What the MSM doesn't tell you is that might be in a month. They don't, give you clearly what the criteria used for these new cases. So they report so many new cases on Monday. On Friday, they report so many new cases. But again, they're not telling you, is that new cases today? Is that new cases in the last week? Is that new cases in the last month? Nah, they just want to scare you. That's their job. Their job is to scare you and scare you shitless. Yeah, it's a fucking scam, people. That's what it is. It's a scam. Now, you can look at any scam from more than one point of view. One of the reasons to look at scams or anything you think is a scam is the old Latin proverb, qui beneficie? Who benefits? Who benefits from all the extreme measures being taken to destroy the COVID pandemic? Yeah, all these extreme measures to destroy the COVID pandemic. And who's benefiting from those measures? Ask yourselves that. That's one way. The other way is, what's going to result from all this? I should point in terms of death counts too. As this thing goes on and on, more people are getting depressed as hell. Medical profession will tell you is depression is not good for your health. More people, they're depressed. They're under extreme stress loads. And the medical profession, again, will tell you stress is bad. I know stress is bad. I'm a diabetic. And I'm having an awful time with something called insulin rejection or insulin resistance. That is a known stress causes it. In other words, your insulin doesn't work as well as it should work. I'm experiencing that. I'm really struggling to keep my blood sugar levels acceptable. Insulin resistance caused by stress. Now, again, I don't know if this is even going out to the public. Some lights on this thing aren't lit up. Supposedly have one viewer. If you're one viewer live, please send me a notice that you're getting this. Right now, since I doubt it's getting through and I want to double check on it, so I'm going to go off the air, as I call it, and save it to my YouTube page and see if I got anywhere. You know, I might have one little button over here that I didn't click. I may have wasted how many minutes here? 25 minutes, whatever. It's not a waste, it's an effort. And go from there. But yeah, I'm really disappointed that I don't see any viewers, especially since I did advertise it. And a couple of my friends are advertising I would be on the air for the very first time actually doing something instead of merely trying to set up a podcast. With that in mind, I have to check on this to see if it's working. And if it's working, I'll probably come back on the air. If you want to communicate to me about this, if I'm not on the air, live chat is obviously worthless. But you could send me an email saying, hey, caught your podcast. I have these questions. Or, hey, caught your podcast. I think you're wrong. And we can get in an interesting discussion of why I'm right or why I'm wrong. Because I have reams of statistics. I've been researching this for quite some time. I mean, I've been researching it since I decided to do a podcast about a month ago. It took me 3 weeks to even get it up and running. So, with that, I bid you adieu for the night. I'm hoping to get feedback one way or the other. And I got to go see whether this is actually being recorded and going on the air. As I say, there were lights that were on earlier that aren't on. And when I click on them, absolutely nothing changes. So, without further ado, good evening. Please, people, don't take what mainstream's feeding you and accept it. Question it. You won't get any questioning on mainstream media. There's no dissent there whatsoever. It's not allowed. Who isn't allowing it? Well, we're under censorship, people. Things are being censored. Mainstream media is turned into nothing more than a propaganda channel for select groups. Everything coming through there is approved. That, ladies and gentlemen, is certainly not free speech. That's not freedom of the press or freedom of the media. That's out and out censorship. And censorship isn't designed to keep false news from you. Censorship is designed to keep the truth from you. Good evening.